Hey, what's up? It's the Field with Preston Hiefield. Thanks so much for listening and liking and subscribing on YouTube, Substack, Apple, and Spotify. You guys know where to find me by now. It is Monday, June 1st, 2026. Still not a dead period in college football. Pretty much a 24/7, 365 biz at this point. We had the Big Ten and SEC spring meetings last week in Ranchos Palos Verdes, California, and Destin, Florida. The classic spot of the SEC meetings, Paul Feinbaum on the beach talking to Heather Dinich, you know, the whole deal. Feinbaum with a crazy take on the Brendan Sorsby story, by the way, which I will get to. Coming up on this pod, we have more 24-team CFP chatter. I know what you're thinking, Preston. We've heard it 88 times on this podcast, what you have to think about it. It's going to be 89 because we have some new reporting out. Heather Dinich wrote a really good story on ESPN.com. Read through it, watched some press conferences, watched some Ryan Day sound bites. So you'll hear, she talked to so many people, Mike Elko, then the A&M AD, Jed Fish. I mean, it's a good story. A lot of different kind of takes, and that's basically the story of the 24-team chatter. It is certainly by far the storyline of the sport right now. Will the college football playoff be expanded to 24 teams after this season? The only reason it's not right this second, according to the reporting, is that Greg Sankey and, in turn, the ADs and the coaches in the SEC do not want it to be so because they have a third to half the power, along with Tony Petitti in the Big Ten and along with ESPN. That's essentially who runs college football. ESPN quite literally owns the entire television broadcasting rights to the college football playoff. Okay, so that'll be a topic today. A little Spurs-Thunder recap as well. NCAA denying Brendan Sorsby, and then some Joey McGuire wanting Texas. Texas Tech really in the news in a lot of different ways. Great softball program suddenly. Cody Campbell all over Twitter, billionaire booster. And obviously the unfortunate Brendan Sorsby situation. I'll give you my stance on what I think should happen there. Spoiler alert, think the NCAA got it right. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so the Big Ten and the SEC meetings took place last week. Big Ten in California, SEC as always in Destin, Florida. Get the classic Paul Feinbaum doing his radio show live from the beach of Destin, Florida, with some beach volleyball in the background. Heather Dinich and usually Lane Kiffin and formerly Nick Saban and other coaches joining him at his desk throughout the day, car wash style. Always interesting to hear what the mouth of the South has to say. And I was much more intrigued with the reporting from Heather Dinich, which was about the only topic that's being discussed in college football right now, which is, will the college football playoff expand from 12 teams to 24 after next season? To give you guys the actual lowdown of the, I guess you could call it legislative side of this whole thing, the Big Ten and the SEC and ESPN have all the power. At the moment, the Big Ten is all in on a 24-team playoff. The only reason it's not going to be a 24-team playoff starting next season, not this upcoming season, but next season, at the moment, is that Greg Sankey and the ADs and presidents and coaches from the SEC can't really come to an agreement, and reportedly they did not this week in Florida, about what exactly the playoff format should be. I just want to say really quickly, the only real positive and reason for the 24-team playoff, as a guy who's just a vintage college football fan, is that it gets more fan bases involved. I personally am not a fan of that at all, and most CFB purists are not. I think it should be really hard to make the college football playoff. I think it should be a huge reward to play in the Rose Bowl. It should be an amazing privilege to host a playoff game. I don't think college football should go full NFL, even though it looks like, certainly based on money, it will, and kind of devalue the regular season. To me, I think it's the greatest regular season in all of sports, still is, even though it's certainly been devalued with the 12-team playoff. And I think that's kind of where I stand on it. And I'll get to some of the reporting stuff here in a second, but just my personal stance on it is, man, I think it should be really, 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 really difficult to make the playoff. You remember in 2011, I will give this example. By the way, I looked up the box score tonight because I remember watching this game. I was watching this game in my dorm room. It was Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Ames, Iowa, went to double overtime. I believe it was a Thursday night. It was some frigid November night. Okay, let me take you back. Let me get you the quarterbacks in this game. I pulled up the box score. Brandon Weeden, of course you remember him, the 28-year-old drafted into the NFL, formerly played for the Yankees, then played for Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. So Oklahoma State goes to Ames on a frigid November night, 10-0, ranked number 2 in the country. This is 2011. Iowa State, 5-4. Right? I mean, they might have a ReliaQuest Bowl in their future if they're lucky. Iowa State wins the game in double overtime, 37-31. And the place shakes. The field goal posts come down. And keep in mind, this is Ames, Iowa in late November, and we're on grass here, folks. Brandon Weeden, 42 of 58, 476 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 picks. That is so awesome that he threw the ball 58 times that night in like a tornado-filled sky. Iowa State's QB, I'm going to be honest, I watch about as much college football as anyone. Did not remember this cat. Jared Barnett. 31 of 58, 376 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. They win the game. By the way, Barnett would later transfer to Illinois State per his ESPN.com player card. You did have Joseph Randall running the ball for Oklahoma State, and Justin Blackman, notable receiver, obviously. Blitnikoff winner. So I just take you back to that game because it just meant so much. Every single regular season game meant so much in the BCS era. It certainly wasn't perfect. It was a huge bummer when teams, in the case of like, if you're an Oregon fan, you lose one game, it feels like you have no chance at the national championship anymore. But that's what made every snap of the regular season thrilling. The year Oregon went to the national title in 2010, they almost lost at Cal, if not for a Cliff Harris punt return in November of that season. If that Cliff Harris punt return doesn't happen, Oregon doesn't play in the national championship game. Just like Oklahoma State here. If Iowa State doesn't upset them in double overtime, in a crazy upset, an Iowa State team that was around 500, 5-4, Oklahoma State plays in the national title game that year. By the way, if you're curious what happened with them the rest of the regular season, that year they killed Oklahoma in Bedlam, no longer a game, unfortunately, and then they beat an Andrew Luck team in overtime in, I think, the Fiesta Bowl that year. So it was a very good Oklahoma State team. And it just every game meant so much back then, man. And it still means a lot. But you know in your heart of hearts, and the players have to know this, and obviously the coaches have to know this, that if you lose 2-3 games, you still have a shot to win the national championship in a 12-team playoff. And to me, I think that's a bummer. I thought 4 was a perfect number because it allows you one slip up, and if you're a great team and you've improved it all year, but you had one bad week, you're probably into the playoff. You definitely would be in an 8-team field, and you certainly would be in a 12-team field. The people who want this 2014 playoff to happen are the Brett Bielemas of the world, an Illinois team who's otherwise not really relevant in the playoff picture. USC obviously never made a playoff. They would love for this to happen. Iowa football, really good program, but hasn't made a playoff, probably isn't threatening to. They want this to happen. So it's the teams, if you ask Tony Petitti, because that's why I'm like kind of shocked about this. I'm like, why would the Big Ten want this to happen? Like, the Big Ten has college football in its grasp right now. They've won 3 straight natties. They're probably favored to win a 4th, with Oregon coming back strong and Indiana coming back strong and Ohio State always talented. Like, why would Tony Petitti want this? The way that college football playoff is currently constructed, the Big Ten is dominant. He's actually in favor of it, and he lists the reason, and again, this all kind of comes back to money. His quote was something along the lines of, we want the fans of the Iowas, the Illinois of the world to be engaged in November, thinking if we win or lose this game, we may or may not make the playoff. And I get that. I get if you're the commissioner, you want as many of your teams and institutions as possible to feel like they kind of have a shot at the playoff. But, like, to me, I think it should be really difficult to make a playoff. I think the regular season of college football means so much. It's so different. And obviously, yes, in the NFL, we're all watching every single game of the NFL regular season, even if it's Chiefs against the lowly Dolphins or something like that. But the college football regular season means everything, man. And I think if it got devalued, if Oregon, I'm a Duck, if Oregon loses and I just kind of roll my eyes like, yeah, whatever. Well, they can probably lose 2 or 3 other times and still get into the playoff. Who, whatever. That certainly devalues the intensity and the atmosphere. Now, obviously, we will still watch the games. Like, it's not like the ratings are going to necessarily reflect this. Like, we're still going to watch all the games and be locked in and cheer and enjoy every second of it. I'm watching a Tuesday night Conference USA game. Obviously, I'm going to be locked into a big-time ESPN game. But it devalues the regular season, and I think that's a bummer. So I certainly would be not in favor of it. I bring this topic up yet again to say the reporting on this is shifting pretty massively. It sounds like Ryan Day gave a quote during the Big Ten meetings, which are like kind of open to the media. They are, but they don't get like widely reported on because they're also, sometimes in kind of a remote location. Anyways, Big Ten meetings in Southern California, like I'm not sure Iowa's sending a ton of beat writers to that one. Ryan Day said it's tough to walk out of that room and not be in favor of a 2014 playoff. To me, that is significant. If the head coach of a team who is constantly favored to make the playoff, who obviously doesn't need a 2014 playoff to get into the playoff, as a 12-team, Ohio State's made the 12-team field the last couple of years, obviously, and then I think they've made the playoff something like 6 straight years. They obviously they don't need a 2014 field to make the playoff, okay? I mean, a lot of people would argue a lot of different coaches could lead them to the playoffs every year. Hence the third base day comment. Shout out Jim Harbaugh, one of the great press conference bites of all time. If Ryan Day is saying, that's fine, like it's tough to walk out of there and not think a 2014 playoff would be a good idea, then to me, my read on that is that means it's going to happen. Because that's a coach that doesn't need anything to go his way to get his way. And what I mean by that is Ohio State's going to get into the 12-team or the 2014 playoff almost no matter what. I mean, they are so much more talented than every team in the Big Ten other than Oregon and Michigan and Indiana and Penn State. Obviously, they're more talented than those teams for the most part outside of maybe Oregon, but they have a talent advantage, and then they have a massive talent advantage against the Iowas of the world, Minnesota, Illinois. And so he doesn't need a 2014 playoff, and to me, him still being in favor of it says that it's going to happen. The guys who want the 2014 playoff are the Minnesotas, the Illinois, the Iowas, who are like, yeah, we really got no shot unless we get a 2014 playoff here. And my last thing on this is I just think that, like, Illinois football, are you going to win a national championship at after an 8-4 season? And I know, like, the first argument everyone's going to say is, like, what about Indiana? Dude, Indiana literally just had one of the best seasons in the history of the sport. They went undefeated. They won their conference championship game. They murdered Alabama at the Rose Bowl. They murdered Oregon in the Peach Bowl. And they beat Miami in the national title game in Miami's own backyard. That is quite literally maybe the best season ever, up there with the LSU Joe Burrow team. Like, that it doesn't get better than that. There is no chance Illinois is pulling that off, and if they do, we tip our hats to them. My point is, like, if you're an 8-4 team, we kind of know you're an 8-4 team. Okay, will there ever be an instance where an 8-4 team wins a national championship? And, like, why would we even give them that shot after losing 4 times in the regular season? I'm not about it at all. Listen, I'll still watch the games. I'll still be wildly engaged in the games. I love college football like it's my life, but I just don't approve of it personally. Okay, switching gears just a little bit to the NBA. The Spurs beat the Thunder in Game 7 in Oklahoma City despite an unreal SGA game. Wemby just makes a dramatic defensive impact, and the Spurs outplay the Thunder. Just plain and simple, outplay the Thunder in Game 7, and they win. And there's so many kind of macro takeaways from this. I think everyone's saying, like, oh, man, it's Wemby's league now. It's Wemby's league now. Good luck. To that, I would say, like, my 2 biggest takeaways from this series, number one, the Spurs did it at such a young age that it's insanely impressive. and they pulled off the tank perfectly, and they pulled off the rest job perfectly. What the Spurs did was tank for 6 straight years. They made the playoffs since before COVID, and they got Dylan Harper, who's 20, Steph Castle, who's 21, and Victor Wembanyama, who's still 22 years old. That is the best tank job I've ever seen, quite simply. They tanked to win, okay? And then they rested Victor. I think he only played about 3/4 of the games this season, if I'm not mistaken. That's just off the top of my head. I thought he played something like 66 games this year. I could look that up. But when you rest your best player a lot and you tank a lot, this is what happens. Now, yes, you had to get lucky to get the ping pong ball. No question about it. Yes, you had to get lucky that a bunch of teams passed on Steph Castle, or 3 teams passed on Steph Castle. No question about it. That being said, they still pulled it off, okay? And here's the other thing about that. I'm pretty sure if you go back and look at the Blazers that Wemby season, when they certainly should have been tanking, and they ended up getting the 3rd pick, there were a handful of games where they played their starters and went on multiple unnecessary winning streaks, particularly around the All-Star break. There is no chance a great organization would ever do that. And the Spurs didn't. And that's why the Spurs got Wemby, because they truly deserved him. The Blazers went on too many winning streaks that year. They unnecessarily played a bunch of starters. Ant Simons had led them to like 4 or 5 straight wins before the All-Star break. Like, if that hadn't have happened, if this was a serious organization with serious leadership at the time, Jody Allen, the Blazers would not have gone on that winning streak, and they would have had a 1% better chance to get Wemby, and that may have been the difference. Instead, too soon, they got Scoot Henderson, whose trade value may have gone up with an awesome Game 2 win in San Antonio, by the way. He played so great in that game. Played great in Games 1 and 2. Obviously not after that, but played great in Games 1 and 2, and I think you have to, gotta hope and pray that turns into some good trade value for the Blazers. The other macro thing besides the tank clearly working is this Wemby's league now? Is it Wemby's league? You know, and I know everyone wants to talk about like Chet. Oh man, Chet's like so ineffective now. Not really. He finished like 2nd in the entire league in defensive player of the year votes. He's actually an incredible shot blocker. It's just that when he's playing, Wemby, he's not nearly as effective. That is very true. Obviously, we all have eyes. We all saw that. We all saw him go 1 for 2 from the field and pretty much just stop trying to play offense with Wemby. That's why Sam Presti added Hartenstein defensively a couple of years back, and it helped quite a bit. Wemby had a 1 or 2 kind of bad games in this series. Didn't talk to the media afterwards. Didn't love that. Thought that was super unprofessional and unsportsmanlike. It is what it is. But the point is, like, is it Wemby's league now? And I feel like everyone's saying that. To me, I would say hell no. Like, I don't know, and I'm glad they didn't make too big of a deal of it on the TV broadcast, because it would have been kind of a bad vibe. Like, as someone who does a lot of play-by-play, like you're really just trying to pump the vibe up and look for the best in everyone and everything and every team, and gloss over bad calls, not dwell on negative moments of the game. You want it to be like a very positive viewing experience and listening experience for everyone. Absolutely. Like, I am all in on that. I very much take a spirit of extreme positivity the best I can when I'm calling a game. No question about it. So I'm glad they glossed over this. Jalen Williams, by far, the second best player on the Thunder, was hurt the entire series. Did not play. Played like 11 minutes, if that. Didn't look good. Hamstring was way too tight. Had to get off the court. They immediately ruled him out for Game 7, which I thought was smart, because the only thing that's worse than your second-best player being hurt is your whole team wondering if he's going to play or not. Like, at least they quickly ruled him out. Didn't matter ultimately in the end. But huge credit to the Spurs, and I'm actually really glad that the Thunder didn't really bring this up. I didn't watch a lot of post game, but I haven't seen a lot of sound bites or bad quotes of the Thunder being like, "Yeah, well, we didn't have Jalen, so we'll see him again." I'm glad they didn't use that as an excuse. I'm glad they were sportsmanlike in defeat. But man, the second best player on the Thunder and the third best player in this series, Jalen Williams, who is J-Dub, who is like completely unstoppable in transition last year. Like, I don't know if people forget how truly great he was in the playoffs last year, especially in transition. He like blends so well with SGA and Caruso and Casey Wallace and those guards who force a steal, Dort, and then you're off and running. He is an unstoppable train in transition. So for J-Dub to not play the entire series, and actually even worse than that, try to play a little bit and be completely ineffective, and therefore the lineups got all jacked up, like that was a huge reason that the Spurs were able to win this series, okay? I don't think that gets talked about enough. Like, I feel like I need to yell that. It's like 10:30 right now, so I'm not going to yell. But the second best player on the Thunder was out the entire series. Hello. He signed like in a rookie extension max. That's a massive deal when the second best player on the team is out the entire series. Like, I feel like that got totally glossed over. Like, let's hammer that. Like, to me, the Thunder are still a clear favorite next year in the West. Clear favorite. They didn't have their second best player all series, and they should have won. I mean, they are the clear favorite to me next year. Now, will they adopt the resting strategy that the Spurs have clearly adopted with Wemby, like where they sit him, 25% of the time? That's TBD. If I'm Sam Presti, I'm only playing J-Dub 40 games next year. If I'm Sam Presti, we need him completely healthy. We need to see that runaway train in transition for the playoffs, because him not being available was the difference in the series, period. Wemby was amazing sometimes. Other times, he wasn't great on offense, great on defense, obviously, always great on defense, but plenty of times not great on offense. I think he only had one bucket in the fourth quarter of Game 7. He had that 4 for 18 night. Again, great player, obviously. Great player. Everyone would want him. Number 1 overall to start their team right now moving forward. But to me, the Thunder, man, I mean, they should have won this series. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, but should have won this series even without their second best player while the Spurs were fully healthy. Oh, and by the way, A.J. Mitchell, who was a big-time player for them, spark plug off the bench, great scorer, he was hurt for a lot, if not all of this series. If the Thunder are healthy next year, I am taking them 10 times out of 10 to beat the Spurs. Now, that being said, hats off to the Spurs. Great tank job. Certainly won them this series. Wemby was sensational. Not going to start to do the comparison things at all. For the younger audience, Shaquille O'Neal, much better player, certainly offensively. Let's not even go there. You should watch the big Allen Iverson fan here. You should watch the 0-1 finals when Shaq averaged 36 and 13 a game. 36 and 13 a game. En route to the Finals MVP. He was truly that great, and that was a slower time, by the way. He was different, folks. Shaq was different. Prime Shaq was different. But yeah, man, I just think the macro topics here are with the Spurs. The tank worked, and is it Wemby's world? To me, it's not yet. Huge congrats to them. They'll probably win the title. Knicks had played so well. God, the Cavs just totally rolled over. I don't see. I think it'll probably take the Spurs a little while to get their footing in this series. It might be 2-2, but I say the Spurs win in 6 probably would be my official prediction. But, man, Steph Castle's so great early. He fouls the shit out of everyone intentionally. Like, it's you can just see the Popovich in these Spurs. Like, the resting, the tanking, the fouling, and you have to give them credit. Like, dude, those strategies work. Like, Steph Castle very intentionally fouls, okay? Wemby pretty much intentionally fouls. They both had 5 fouls most games this series, it felt like, okay? They do that intentionally. I am extremely impressed with how great they are at such a young age. I'll also say, kind of like, not a perfect comparison, but kind of like an NFL team with a great quarterback on his rookie contract. They have arguably their 3 best players on rookie deals in Harper, Castle, and obviously Wemby, and that allows them to pay De'Aaron Fox, who's making, look it up, like 60-something million a year. It's out of control. And then guys like Vassell and Champagnie. By the way, Champagnie, I might just look this up right now to confirm it, but I believe he set a Spurs record this year in three-point field goal percentage or three-pointers make. Spurs record. Let me look this up. Julian Champagnie holds the Spurs franchise record for most three-pointers made in a single season this year. I feel like he's like maybe the most underrated role player in the last 10 years, 20 years. Like, no one talks about him, and he quite literally just set the Spurs all-time record for three-pointers made in a season. If he's open in the corner, it's going in like 96% of the time. And he's also like 6'7", so he's not flashy. He's not windmilling like Dylan Harper or just brutally strong and running into people like Castle or doing whatever the heck Wemby does. But he's incredibly important, and they're going to be able to keep those guys, man, because they got Wemby and Castle and Harper on smaller deals, and just a masterful GM job, coach job, and it's crazy, man. I also love the raw emotion from Wemby. You know, him crying and the camera shot of him just hugging everyone. I love to see that, man. I mean, a lot of people are too cool for school. A lot of players, a lot of athletes are too cool for school, and they win. It's kind of like, what now? Look at me. And not Wemby, man. He was in tears, tears of happiness. You know, I've seen the video of him and Chet after that. I don't know what that was, like a U16 USA versus France game, and USA wins gold, and Chet's got the medal, and Wemby's getting second place and crying about it, and he was like, I can't believe this motherfucker just beat me. And he certainly got the last laugh. That's the other thing, a lot of people are talking about, and I'm sure the Thunder are talking about it, is like, what do we do with Chet? Again, you're going to hear this from me. I think Chet's still a really good defensive player and a really good player in general who can step out and hit the three. I would not panic if I'm the Thunder. You obviously don't want to sit completely still. You want to make tweaks if and when you can. But the second best player in the series, second best player on your team, third best player in the series, Jalen Williams, who's like a max player, was out the entire series, and you still basically should have won. I would not panic. Yes, you're going to need Hartenstein to play more and bruise up Wemby more. Chet does not have the strength to bruise up Wemby the way that Hartenstein does. I think just, you watch the games, and then obviously you watch Wemby. Wemby much prefers playing Chet than he does playing Hartenstein. He's kind of annoyed when Hartenstein's out there because he's got so much girth and strength to him, and with Chet, he knows he can just kind of push Chet around. He also just takes it insanely personable when Chet's out there. I'm not really sure why, whether it's the comparisons, whether it's that high school U16 world game I mentioned, but he seems to take it insanely personal when Chet's out there. The Thunder played both. At one point, they played Hartenstein and Chet, and Hartenstein guarded Wemby, and then Chet was able to be out there offensively, but he just did nothing, man. And I just think Wemby kind of mentally broke him. But I wouldn't give up on Chet. I wouldn't do some kind of crazy trade, give Chet away. I'd run it back. I'd stay healthy. I'd rest my starters for a lot of next season. And I would say, you guys didn't see Jalen Williams, and we'll see you in the playoffs. Pull up. Okay, and finally, a couple of Texas Tech nuggets. Number one, the NCAA has ruled Brendan Sorsby permanently ineligible, the quarterback for Texas Tech, who was caught via law enforcement gambling a lot of money on a lot of games. How much, you ask? Let's go ahead and look that up. Per The Athletic, Sorsby admitted to wagering at least $90,000 on more than 9,000 bets. 9,000 placed bets over the course of his college career. Obviously, that's an addiction, and he's checked in for that. While at Indiana, Sorsby placed more than 8,600 impermissible bets, totaling $30,000. At Cincinnati, it was more than 500 impermissible bets, totaling at least $38,000, including one wager on a Cincinnati men's basketball game for $3,500. This included directing others to place bets on his behalf, transferring at least $60,000 to two friends to fund wagers. So that's not great. And, you ask me, he's 22, he's young, but, you can't let him play college football anymore. It's over, okay? If he was like a sophomore or junior, I guess you could suspend him for a year or even two. Maybe let him play one more year after serving a year-long suspension, but especially because he's a fifth-year senior, dude, it's over. It's over. Pack it up. Go to the supplemental draft. Try to win that third-string job for the Dolphins or something. By the way, I kind of can't. I don't know. This might be a blessing, and this might be a hot take. This might be kind of a blessing in disguise for Texas Tech. I'm serious. Is Will Hammond still there? I'm a big Will Hammond guy, and I don't think Sorsby's that good. Is he still there? Yeah, he's still there. Dude, I'm telling you, Will Hammond, pretty good player before he tore his ACL last year. He was better than Baron Morton. Poor Baron Morton by the end was so beat up, he was a corpse in that Orange Bowl against Oregon. Texas Tech scored 0 points in that playoff game against the Oregon Ducks after dominating in the Big 12. That shows you how bad the Big 12 is. I actually low-key think it's a blessing in disguise for Texas Tech. I truly believe Hammond's better than Sorsby. Obviously, their GM and Joey McGuire don't, because that's why they paid Sorsby a lot of money, or maybe Cody Campbell is just like, hey, I'm the booster. I run this program now, which is certainly true. The boosters run the sport now, no question about it. We're getting Sorsby. I like him. Give him $6 million. He's our quarterback for this year. I want to see what happens. Could have happened. Definitely. That probably is quite literally what happened. But here's the deal. As far as the actual, should he play, should he not play, you can't let a guy who made 9,000 impermissible bets on college football while playing college football continue to play college football. In the NBA, you had, and I get that he didn't bet on himself. I get that he was a backup at Indiana when he was betting on Indiana. I get that. He's still betting on games that he's privy to, on teams who he obviously knows extremely well. If you let him play, if you let him play and you're trotting out there as a college football player this year, you're probably thinking I wonder if that opposing QB's throwing a little cheese on this game because he knows a little something, or maybe doesn't. You can't. It's over. On top of that, by the way, a wildly inaccurate statement from Paul Feinbaum, shocker, I know, said that the NCAA is partnered with gambling companies. For the record, and I'm glad some really good journalists have cleared that up, that is completely false. The NCAA does not partner with any gamblings at all, period, ever, okay? If they did, like the NBA does, you could certainly be more critical, because that would be a hypocritical move, like it was in the NBA, to kick out, what was Michael Porter Jr. brother's name? Jonte Porter, I think, to kick him out in a game presented by DraftKings. And by the way, those Western Conference Finals on NBC, every single commercial break, massive DraftKings billboard, as Mike Tirico says. And this game is brought to you by DraftKings. Every single major commercial break, pretty much, at least the quarter ends. It's hammered in 100 times that it's brought to you by DraftKings. Okay. So yes, that would be wildly hypocritical of the NBA. You could argue. I'm still down to kick anyone out for gambling on the NBA. Again, it's really not that hard to just not bet on your team or not bet on the sport you're playing. Bet on, if you're an NBA player, bet on the NFL. If you're a college football player, bet on the NFL. And by the way, I've been in many of these meetings. There's a position at these colleges called the director of compliance. These days, there might be a couple different people helping run the compliance department at these major schools. Actually, I'm almost certain of it. They tell these student athletes, because they bring the media in, and they kind of help us not accidentally tee up a student athlete for a wrong question. I remember someone asked some Oregon baseball player back when I was in local TV in Eugene, what his favorite bat was. And the SID was dude, don't ask that. Because if the kid, this was so stupid by the NCAA back then, if the kid had said oh, I love a Louisville Slugger bat, it really just cracks. Apparently that was some kind of marketing NCAA violation. And so these kids, especially in this day and age of NIL, they get told 100 times over, I can promise you, especially at a big school like Texas Tech, who, they have a billionaire booster who is just handing out bags of money. They get told 100 times over to not bet on college football or any. There's a whole list. There's a whole list of sports that you can't bet on as a current college athlete. I think it's mostly all college sports. You're not allowed to bet on, college baseball, college softball, etc. There's a whole list. They tell that to those student athletes. Weekly, probably more often than weekly. And then the coaches and the position coaches, they obviously talk about, like, dude, they tell you so many times to never bet on this. And again, obviously the kids bet 9,000 different times per The Athletic, who got a hold of the lawsuit. That's obviously an addiction. Okay. That's an addiction. And he did go to recovery for it, etc. I think you guys probably heard my take off the top last time I brought this up. This might be cynical of me. You got to think it was someone from Cincinnati who tipped off law enforcement. The article, the NCAA says that law enforcement just kind of found it out on their own. Okay. I mean, he's not like a super popular guy, but regardless, I would kind of imagine someone at Cincinnati tipped off law enforcement here. Overall, though, point being, you can't play. You can't play Brendan Sorsby if you're the NCAA. You can't allow this, and this is certainly the right decision. We don't want a receiver at Ohio State being like, oh, the Texas Tech quarterback bet 9,000 different times and only had to serve like a one or 2 game suspension, which is what Sorsby's lawyer asked for, by the way, a 2-game suspension. Yeah, let's just go ahead and do that. I mean, who cares if I get suspended against Indiana and USC or Illinois and USC or Minnesota? Like, let's do it. So you can't have that happening. So it's this one's pretty cut and dry. Finally, the Joey McGuire story is awesome. I thought this was great for college football. This is Big 12 meetings, probably in Dallas would be my guess, where they have media days. And he's on a stage next to Rich Rod, and he's asked. I actually don't know what he's asked. I watched the 2-minute soundbite that a reporter put out of him basically challenging Texas. And I just want to say he did this in such a humble way. And first of all, like I've been big Joey McGuire, fan from the start. Like, just so people know, he coached like 25 years of high school football in Texas before getting a shot at, I don't remember where, a smaller college in Texas. Like, this dude has been a football lifer and was coaching in high schools for like basically 3 decades before he even got a shot in college football. So the notion that this guy is just some money-grabbing random goon of a coach is completely inaccurate. He's, a family man, a longtime high school coach. Like, this guy is not, he's a good guy. I mean, it's like, simply put, like by all accounts anyway, he seems like a really good guy. And he also said this very humbly. He was like, the last time we played Texas, which I looked it up, was November of 23. We lost 57-7. You can make fun of us because against Oregon in the playoff, we were shut out. We didn't score a single point in the playoff. All I'm saying is I talked to G.J. Kinney and the Abilene Christian coach. They can play each other. Texas Tech scheduled up for Abilene Christian, and Texas scheduled for Texas State, G.J. Kinney. They can play each other. We'll pay Abilene Christian the fee. I'm sure Texas has a lot of money. They can pay Texas State and G.J. Kinney the fee, and we would love to play Texas in week 1. If you're Sark and you're CDC, Chris Del Conte, do you consider it? I mean, you might want to consider it. It would be pretty sweet to pull up after. Again, that wasn't really smack talk from Joey McGuire. Cody Campbell, the booster, he was running his mouth a lot on the internet, and he got his way on the Pat McAfee show somehow. I don't know if he threw a bunch of money at Pat McAfee or what, but Cody Campbell was literally on the Pat McAfee show last week. I was like, what are we doing? And he was going off about how they want to play Texas. They lost by 50 the last time they played Texas. Now, that was a 6-6 Texas Tech team. Baron Morton, the QB. That was a very good Texas team with Quinn Ewers. Sark was the coach. McGuire was the coach. That was a little bit pre-Joey McGuire dumping his billions into the program. So it would be a more competitive game this time around, no question. Cody's out there buying a lot of good players. But I don't know. If you're Sark, like, I'd be pretty tempted, man. I'd be like, should we shut this dude up? Now, the only thing is, so it'd be great for college football. And I want to say, like, again, even though it kind of seems like if you read like a headline about this, you're probably like, dude, Joey McGuire, like, you probably scoff, like, dude, what are you doing? Like, stop running your mouth and challenging Texas, and like, just play your Abilene Christian game and play the Big 12. Texas has everything to lose and nothing to gain out of this. The SEC is laughably better than the Big 12. The Big 12 is kind of a joke right now. No offense, it just is. When you lose 23-0, when your best team by a mile loses 23-0 in their playoff game, you kind of got to just come back and wear that one on the chin and then prove it the next year, okay? Now, if Texas Tech, like your goal, get in the playoff and prove it. And I will say, Arizona State, although they lost to Mississippi State this last year, who was the worst team in the SEC, not a good look. The year before that, they almost beat Texas in the playoff, if not for an epic Quinn Ewers throw, and that made the Big 12 look great. Shout out Cam Scattaboo and Sam Levitt and Kenny D. Great run by Arizona State, okay? So one game doesn't swing the notion or the narrative of a conference. It shouldn't anyway. It does. It shouldn't. The SEC has continued to prove it for decades that they're the best league in the world. And the Big 12 is... When was the last time the Big 12 won anything relevant in the college football postseason? I mean, I just asked myself that question. Lincoln Riley never won a playoff game at Oklahoma. I mean, it would have to be I know Iowa State beat Oregon in a COVID Fiesta Bowl in 2020. Anthony Brown, yikes. I'm talking major win. When was the last time the Big 12 had a major win in college football? It's been a long time, man. A long time. I guess it would have to be Oklahoma making the Natty against Florida. Am I just forgetting something? Yeah, but it would have to be, or off the top of my head, it would have to be Oklahoma making the Natty against Florida with Bob Stoops in 06. I guess what it would have to be. It's been a long time. So the point is, Texas, as fun as that would be, and by the way, as someone who's lived in Austin, that would be a great game, unreal atmosphere. We all remember the last time Texas played at Texas Tech. I think that was the last time. The insane Colt McCoy game, but Michael Crabtree, Graham Harrell, shout out Mike Leach, rest in peace, makes the catch down the sideline, takes it in for a touchdown. Blake Gideon gets burned. Amazing game. Texas lost a chance to play for a national title off that play. Halloween night, Lubbock, etc. And I love that Texas Tech is paying players a lot of money now, and they're back and they're very good. Lubbock, but Lubbock looks like an amazing football environment. Actually, what am I saying? I've never been to a game. I've driven through it, and I've hung out at the stadium. I've never been to a game. But the environment looks amazing there. But the point is, Texas just doesn't have anything to gain by playing that game, and they have a lot to lose. If they lose, that's a bad look for the SEC, and it's a bad look for them. Whereas Texas Tech, if they lost by 20, 30, 40, people will be like, yeah, kind of saw that one coming. So as much as I would love to see it happen, I really would, and I think Texas would kind of stomp them. I don't think Texas would play it, but I'd be happy if they did.